All right, looks like we are live. Okay, welcome back to Real Cast Fishing. Your host Glenn with the City Valley Fishing Field Team, and this round we're talking the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing tips 116 through 120. So we're doing basically the various tips that are listed in the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing, published several years back, and in there I just go through each one, read through each tip, call out anything that anyone may have, and then from there we'll break into a Q&A session, or just it's an open forum just to be talking about fishing and whatnot. So howdy, I'm monitoring the chat, so if you have anything you want to call out, certainly do. I'll check it as we go through the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Right now there's a few folks that are starting to join, I think, so let's kind of wait for that and kind of just talk things in general, kind of recapping things from this past few weeks. I did a lot of pond fly fishing, pond ultralight bait casting, as well as making our annual run to the Galveston fishing piers, do some fishing on the coast. And so with that, uh, well, it was fun, but hey, let's get back to business now. Little Red Book of Fly Fishing, and we'll just go through the passages, call them out, and from there, um, well, from there, let's see if we get some good engagement. All right. So that said, let's begin. Nervous Water 116, tips 116 of the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Bonefish guides are always looking for patches on the water with telltale ripples that reveal movement under the surface. They call it nervous water, or in Mexico, agua nerviosa. When fish move through the shallow water in schools, they make a subtle disturbance that reveals their presence, even when their fins do not break the surface. This is always true. This is also true with trout, especially in flat water, like slow moving spring creeks, excuse me, and lakes. It's always worth looking for nervous patches of surface water when you are figuring out where to make your first cast. Okay, some good information there right off the bat, and some things I want to call out. And this one is, hey, it's true. This nervous water piece, we saw it firsthand while we are down over there on the Texas coast fishing the Galveston fishing pier this past week or last week. A lot of times we'd see some kind of nervous water, these ripples just under the surface, just some movement and whatnot, and sometimes it'd be some bait fish, other times it'd be some sharks and other fish attacking the bait fish, and on several occasions it was some porpoise or dolphin kind of moving about and whatnot in the area. So it's a good one to keep in your back pocket. 116 nervous water. Just look for those ripples and key on that. Maybe there might be some trout lurking there per the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Hey, it's a good tip to keep in your back pocket. Okay, let's go on to tip 117. 117. Your fly rod cannot see. Being able to cover a lot of water from stationary spot in the river is an important attribute for any angler. Start short and cover those currents that look most appealing. Then you make that tricky roll cast across the eddy. How about punching that long cast out the main current? If you can hit all the targets from one spot, you're better off than most folks. The less you move, the more your odds improve, because trout are easily spooked by the noises of boots shuffling along the bottom and by splashes made by a fisherman in motion. As said, it's important to pause and remember a simple lesson before you go spraying your cast all over the river. You see with your eyes, not your fly rod. Look before you start prospecting with casts. Every time, one or two well-conceived, well-planned casts are almost always more effective than 30 casts just spread willy-nilly throughout a run. Some anglers talk about blind casting as a way to cover water when they cannot actually see fish and there are no visible telltales to follow. That should be a last resort. There's always something to key on. A juicy current seam, a rock that creates a bucket of deep water in the wake, or something. Spend more time looking for something that will help you prioritize your cast and less time blind casting without any real purpose. A small quarterback doesn't throw the long bomb on every play. Or a smart quarterback does not throw the long bomb on every play. Neither should you. Okay, so a good tip here. Your fly rod does not see. Guilty of that, where I'm just casting and whatnot, just blindly, when I should have probably been keying off some key things, like it said, a juicy seam. So I see some fast water, slow water, kind of right in that seam. Start casting there. I see with my polarized glasses, I see some fish activity. Why not cast there versus the blind cast and maybe, well, potentially spooking them? So keep that one in your back pocket. I like that one. Okay. Your fly rod does not see. Okay, let's go on the 118. That's going to be the Telltale Rise. Okay. And again, I'll just read through it, call out any things, and I'm monitoring the chat. So if you guys have any items to add to it, or maybe things in general, certainly do, and I'll call them out. Alrighty. And while you're at that, have maybe a brewski or two. Okay, the telltale rise. An angler can often tell what type of fly to use by watching the rises of fish in a run. This is where the ability to read water directly influences fly selection. Learning to read water so you understand what insects fish probably are eating in a given stretch is the step that jumps an angler from fly fishing 101 straight into graduate school. This slow method, or that slow, methodical rise and slurp with the nose of the trout visibly breaking the surface is a classic mayfly feed. When you see a fish porpoise and the water being disturbed without a nose breaking the surface, you can figure the trout is likely picking off emerges just below the surface. A fast, splashy rise indicates that fish is eating caddis swimming to the top. A super subtle sip often suggests the fish is keying on midges, and a grasshopper take can be anything from a violent gulp to a long, laborious slurp. Even a newbie will know that at first glance. So I wonder, anyone have experienced that at some point? Just keying off the fish and how it's feeding. So let's just kind of walk through this again. So the first thing it's calling out is the slow, methodical rise and slurp with the nose of the trout visibly breaking the surface. They're calling that the classic mayfly feed. Yes, I've seen that. When you see the fish porpoise and the water's disturbed without the nose breaking the surface, it's saying that the trout are likely picking off emergers just below the surface. So that tells me, hey, maybe put on a gold rib hare's ear nymph or some kind of midge that's just below the surface that will get them to elicit a strike and maybe catch a trout or two. A fast splashy rise indicating that fish is eating caddis swimming to the top. Okay, so we got some of these caddis kind of coming up to the top and it's just doing a quick splash. That's a good one. I didn't really realize that one, so that's a good one to keep in your back pocket. And then finally about the grasshopper violent gulp or slurp on the surface. So yeah, so good stuff there. I really didn't understand about the porpoising piece, so I always thought that they were actually hitting something on the surface, but that's good to know. The nose didn't break the surface. It's porpoising, the back kind of does break the surface, but they're not actually feeding off something on the surface. It's actually something just below, like a midge. So I'm thinking like zebra midges, especially on the Blue River up here in Oklahoma. That one seems to work fairly well on occasion, I remember. Alrighty. Okay, next one. 119, Shadows in Birdland. Bear with me while I wet my whistle. Okay, 119, Shadows in Birdland. Trout are easily spooked by shadows moving overhead, but the stationary shadow is often an umbrella where they find comfort and calm, especially on bright sunny days. The moving shadow above can trigger an instinctively defensive reaction. Fish think it might be a predator. Excuse me. The stable shadow one cast from an overhanging tree or a cut bank gives the trout protection from such predators. If you happen to walk up on a pool and spot some small trout, raise your arms or rod to create a shadow and move the shadow above the fish. You'll see exactly what we're talking about. The fish will flee for cover almost instantly. In the context of reading water, it's important to factor in the presence of shadows. The wind-blown tree branch that's waving back and forth above the river surface is not a good trout magnet. On the other hand, that tall, rocky wall or stand of thick willows casting a shadow over the river is a good place to direct your attention. Look for structure and current breaks in the shadows when you're planning a cast. Answer these: cast near the dark to light shadow transition, usually a foot or two to the dark side. Remember, stable shadows good, moving shadows bad. Oh wow, this is one that I haven't taken into account before. The other day I was fishing, doing some ultralight bait casting at the local pond here, and I did catch some bass that were tending on a shadow line, and just like in this description, it was a shadow line that was pretty heavily covered, a wider area, and it wasn't swaying in the wind. It was just a steady, stable shadow, and they were kind of lurking in there. So I'm gonna have to remember this next time I maybe hit one of the rivers for some trout. Right there, I'll key off this bottom section here, which says, "Remember, stable shadows good, moving shadows bad." That's a simple one to remember. Nice. Okay, last one this round. 1, 2, 0. Where would you be? Okay, and then once we get done with this, we'll just open up to any questions, comments, as well as maybe I'll flip through some past videos that we can talk to and see if that gets some engagement or some additional questions that some folks may have. Again, fly fishing related or just things in general. Just open up the forum to whatever ad, because hey, we can always talk fishing. All right. Okay. Let's see. Bro is streaming to no one to be rude. I stream. It gets recasted anyways, and people watch it over time. Alrighty, so where would you be when reading water? Ask yourself the simple question: if I were a trout, where would I be? Understand that your life revolves around three things: eating, not being eaten, and making little fish. In the context of fly angling, the eating part is most important, playing the role of trout. You understand that you primarily eat insects and smaller fish. You know that you'll find more of both closer to the banks, so that's a good starting point to choose where you were to hang out by the river. The insects you eat come in all forms: nymphs, emergers, adult bugs hatching, adult spinners falling to the surface to lay eggs, terrestrials falling into the river, and so forth. Let's see. You know that mayflies, for example, like to lay eggs on gravel bottoms, and that is where nymphs, emergers, duns, and spinners are likely to concentrate. Okay. Currents also concentrate insects. Bugs get trapped and collect in the seam where fast water bumps up against slow water. For example, you, the trout, want to be near the seam, in a place where you aren't expending more calories to swim than you can consume. At the same time, you don't want to become calories for another predator. You want to find cover in those rocks or under that log. Lacking thick cover, my exit strategy is to go to deep water. There has to be a place where I can escape to the depths when I'm threatened. Making little fish is another matter. We spawn on gravel. Hopefully the angler reading this book won't mess with me when I'm on my spawning bed. The more you ask yourself, if I were a trout, where would I be while you are in the water? Fishing, the easier reading water becomes. Thinking like a fish thinking like a fish will make places and targets pop out before you cast. You'll overlook fewer targets and catch more trout. And then it'll shift on the 1-2-1. We'll pick that up next round, but for now, let's go ahead and just kind of recap things real quick, and then we'll open up to any general fishing questions, Q&A, etc. Okay, so the first one was 116. Nervous water. We're talking about some patchy waters and whatnot. Let's see. And let's see. The next one was 117. Your fly rod cannot see. So the intent there is don't be blind casting. Instead, focus on some likely fishy locations instead of blind casting, because your fly rod doesn't see. 18, the telltale rise. This is keying off the different rises, and it calls out 4 in particular: the slow, methodical rise, the classic mayfly rise, and then the fish porpoising, where the nose doesn't break the surface but the back does. That's the case where it's feeding on or picking off emerges just below the surface. And then that fast, splashy rise as the caddis is coming up to the surface. It's just kind of coming in there fast and taking the fishing fly. Okay. And then finally that grasshopper take that could be a loud slurp or other long, laborious slurp, right? And the shadows and burn, then it's just talking about a stable shadow versus a one that's moving. Most likely stick with that one that's more stable so it doesn't spook the fish. And then finally, where would you be? Think like the trout. It's like the zen of trout fishing and whatnot. Okay. All right. It opens up things to things in general. So, does anyone have any fishing things to call out? I just at the beginning I just went over some of the things we were doing in these past few weeks, doing a lot of ultralight bait casting, some pond fly fishing. Did do some kayak fishing, jug lining, as well as some bottom bounce trolling and whatnot at the local lake. Caught some white bass as well as some catfish. Made a run to the Galveston fishing pier this past week and had a fun time catching some sharks. Ended up with 5 sharks total, and then 1 keeper speckled trout, and we lost 2 good sized fish that ended up breaking the line. So I'm not even sure what it is. We suspect some pretty good sized reds, bull reds, or possibly the big uglies, the black drum and whatnot. Okay, so just to keep the discussion going, I'm going to shift this over to just some previous videos. This one's a pond one that I had done streaming. I forgot where now, but I'm going to go ahead and just call it out here. Okay, and there's no sound, but what I want to just walk through is what I'm doing here is I'm using a damselfly. It's a small foam pattern that I use. Uses some 2mm closed cell foam, and I'm pretty much just working the edges, the banks of this particular pond. I've got my polarized glasses so I can see clearly in the water and see the fish take. Okay, and what I did was I did a once around the pond, and I think I did another like partway move around the pond and caught a number of bass as well as some bluegill. Okay. And let me see again. This is the damselfly. It's not the foam variant. Oh, okay. So I'm using the damselfly that uses 2 marabou plumes. I think it was the white one with the bead chain eyes. So you can use the dumbbell eyes. I was going with some bead chain eyes, like the same one that you use when you're pulling down the chain on a fan. And all I'm doing is just kind of working the edges, looking for some, well, basically whatever bites. One other thing that I have fished this pond in the past and had some really good success. And one of the key takeaways that I try telling folks when they are first starting out fly fishing is you don't need to learn to cast for distance. Instead, you can really just cast the length of your rod plus the length of your fly line and leader. I think I went to one pond and just kind of locked the line in place, so it was basically 16 feet long. So I was using an 8-foot rod, 8-foot fly line, and then an additional, I think, 3 or 4 foot or 6 foot leader and tippet, and I was able to catch everything that round without having to cast for any further distance. So one of the things that I noticed, a lot of folks will take up fly fishing and they'll end up getting frustrated because they're not able to cast the fly and they're not catching any fish, and next thing you know, they've stopped. So if you are getting started fly fishing, I suggest find a place that has fish and practice there, because while you're learning how to cast and improve on your casting, you're still able to catch a fish or two. All right. So, yeah. Okay. Let's see. In this, I believe. Okay, I'm just trying to get a view of the reel. I can't remember if this is a little 3-weight that I was using. Yeah, maybe the little 3-weight. Yeah. When I say little 3-weight, it may be the 10-foot 3-weight that I use, but it doesn't look like a 10-foot rod. It may be this other one, a little short TQR, Cabela's 2QR rod that I like using because it's easily portable and whatnot. Okay. So I think I forgot how many fish I caught with this thing, but it was a pretty good fun. It was a pretty fun day, and the key takeaway from that was with a simple pattern, the bead chain fly, damsel fishing fly. It's made with two marabou plumes and the bead chain, and it's tied sort of clouser style. You can use it to catch a number of fish, mainly because it is mimicking basically a small bait fish. All right, so I'm gonna call it out. I think there's like a few folks on here, not a bunch, but hey, appreciate y'all joining today. And FBI bot, appreciate you can be moderator and whatnot. Thanks for joining tonight. I think you've been on a number of the live streams going out there at the local ponds and whatnot. So really appreciate the support there. All right, and then let's see. I wonder if I can get you to some other things. Let me go ahead and stop this. Okay, so okay. Okay, I'm just yeah, there it is. Okay. So let me go talk about some of the recent happenings. I know this is talking about the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing and uh, uh, fly fishing, but it's the open forum at this point. We can talk pretty much anything fishing wise, and there's several things that I've been prepping for, and it got me really excited from this last trip to the coast where I did see some basically someone casting these mullet, these small as well as larger size mullet, basically live lining them, casting it without a weight, and giving me some good information there. So I got the bait finesse bug and picked up another bait finesse reel. I'm still looking for a rod for it, but I'm pretty excited that I think next round when I go hit the coast, I'm going to be able to do some live lining of some mullet, casting it with bear with me, the camera shuts off on me unexpectedly, so it happens. I've got it the switcher on, but I only have one camera on at this point. But let me go grab that reel. Okay, I'm back. All right, here it is. Okay, that's that Shimano Corrado BFS, and I've been extremely happy with this one. I've got the Scorpion as well, and I've been happy with that one. But Scorpion's a little bit bigger. Well, instead of, let me just go grab it also. Okay, I'm back. All right. So this is the Scorpion, Shimano Scorpion BFS XG, the XG being the extra gear. And I think this one is rated about 7.1 gear ratio. You can see it's kind of beat up and all that. Taken it to the coast several times. It's been in salt. It's been in salt water as well as fresh water. And this is the Corrado. Okay. And just from the looks of it, let's see, you can see one is definitely bigger than the other. Okay, this is the Corrado, this is the Scorpion. And from a use perspective, I've only used this one now. This is like a second time out that I've used this. And I notice I can palm it really nicely. And I'm one of those ones that I cast with my right as well as I reel with my right. Been able to cast the 1/16 ounce rooster tail no problem. Okay, and for some reason the bass were liking this yellow rooster tail with the copper blade the other day, so been happy with that. The Shimano Scorpion has been another one that I use most recently. Got it on a 4.5 foot lightning rod, and I put a trout magnet on it, but it doesn't cast a trout magnet as well as the feather flight reel Kingfisher. This one, I have to do a lot of this Kentucky windage. So let's say I want to cast this way. I'm pretty much releasing from the 90 to get it to cast where I want. I'm getting some good distance from it, at least 20, 30 feet, no problem. But it's just kind of weird that I'm releasing here just so I can get it out that way. And that's with adjusting the brakes and the spool tension. The main thing though is, oops, getting a little notice here. The main thing is I do like the feel, the look of this Corrado. Yeah, it's the 8.2 gear ratio. Okay. And I've been really happy with it. I think some say that it doesn't cast some really light weights and whatnot. So that 1 gram trout, man, it may be an issue. But what I'm aiming for, casting some live bait, shad, mullet, about yay big with no weight and whatnot, I think I can do it, no problem, especially since I'm practicing with a 1/16 ounce lure. Let's see, other things. It does have a reel clicker that sounds really nice when you got something fighting on the line. I do have it lined with 6-pound test, so I've been happy with that. Let's see, I just got a SLX-DC and love it. All right, nice. Yeah, I heard the SLX-DC actually has one less magnet brake on there, so it gives you a little bit more capability of casting lighter lures. So less than 1/16 should be not a problem. And I think one of the suggestions was to take out one of the magnets, but for me, I tend not to customize any of my gear. I just like using it straight up and just kind of adjusting from there. Mainly is just well, we're average Joes, avid fishermen, not experts, and the intent there is just to show that you can take something off the rack, no customization, and kind of play with it. Let's see. What do you fish for? Freshwater, it's mainly just bass and bluegill. Kayak fishing, I'll go do some jug lining for some catfish, as well as do some trolling with some white bass and yellow bass and whatnot. And then also do some jigging for some crappie in my kayak. Got a little john boat also, where I'll also do some fishing at the local lake here, as well as go up the road and hit up the local tail race for some striped bass. And additionally, make that run across to Oklahoma. I'm here in North Texas. Make that run across to Oklahoma and partake in some of that trout fishing. There's 2 year-round fisheries, Lower Illinois River, the up by Gore, Oklahoma. Tail race to Lake Tenkiller, that's a year-round fishery. And then Lower Mountain Fork, Beavers Bend State Park, that is another year-round fishery in the state of Oklahoma. The only year-round fishery that we have here in Texas is down by the New Braunfels, Texas, just in between Austin and San Antonio. It's about a 4-hour drive from here. That one has a year-round fishery for some trout as well in the Guadalupe. All right, let me call out some names here because someone said you should start calling out folks joining on the chat. So let's do so. FBI Bot, thanks, bro. You've been out there multiple streams. I've seen you, so thanks for joining. Juan Sanchez, love that SLX DC. Definitely wouldn't mind hearing more about how that one's going and what you're catching with it. And then Peyton Short, hi, how's it going? Appreciate you joining there. And then any tips on bass fishing right now that the bite is extremely low? Well, the only suggestion I have at this point in the year, working the local ponds and whatnot, is really fish the early morning, late evening. As things start cooling down some, you could probably take advantage of that and fish those longer hours. I know it's going to get darker in the evening, so you start getting out there in that early evening into the later evening when it's starting to get dark. You'll be surprised what's out there. When it comes to bait finesse, go with the ultralight lures. I think in these heavily pressured ponds and lakes that we have here, having that smaller lure tends to get more bites, and it could be a big one, it could be a small one, but I tend to get more bites. And then also keep an attractant lure, something that has a lot of loudness, pop, gurgling or whatnot, maybe a small jitterbug or a hula popper and whatnot, because as you transition from when it starts getting dark, I think in our area here, it's going to get dark around, I think about 8:30, 9 o'clock now. You can take advantage of that evening bite where it's just starting to get dark, and you can take advantage of that noisier um, lure to get them to hit. All right, so I hope that helps. All right. Okay. Other things you want to talk about? Call them out. I just wanted to just show you the bug that I have right now, which is basically practice on casting some live bait. The intent being casting live mullet so I can fish under the lights for some big bruiser speckled trout. And while I'm over here in the freshwater North Texas area, intent there then is to at least practice. Maybe I'll catch some shad and fish them on a live line or free line, no weight and whatnot, and see what I can do if I can get a bite or two that way. Okay, BQZ. I caught my PB largemouth Saturday at 6:30 a.m. with a topwater frog. Nice. It's the only fish I caught all day. I'm in northern Illinois, by the way. All right, excellent. Good to hear. A little topwater frog. All right. Were you using ultralight gear, or were you using standard bait casting, or what gear were you using? I didn't like to hear that. And then let's see, one. So smaller lures is the key. My legs are extremely pressured. I've been wanting to use a 3-inch swim bait on a jig head. Yeah, what I noticed is take advantage of the ultralight bait casting, this BFS, because I have seen many times and observed many times where there are folks just fishing your standard size, and then someone comes in with some ultralight gear and they're just getting hit left and right. I think because they don't get it, they're unaccustomed to these smaller size lures. They're going to readily strike them compared to some others that they're used to seeing all the time. You know, you pass a big crankbait so many times, that fish is probably going to get used to, hey, that one's going to not be one to strike. Let's see. It was a medium heavy ugly stick with 4000 series. Nice. That's I think that's very similar to the rig that I use when I'm kayak fishing with a slab and jig rig. I tend to use a medium ugly stick with, I believe, the same thing, 4000 series spinning wheel. I got it up there right now. Yeah. Got some braid on it, and being able to just kind of bottom bounce has been a benefit for me. I think I got some videos where I'm showing you that technique where I'm actually fishing with the kayak versus fishing with the rod. I'll cast out, let the slab and jig rig hit bottom, and then I'll start back paddling and getting enough momentum or speed so my troll or that paddle is at a rate that I can see the jig head or the tip of my rod kind of bouncing at a steady rhythm. And when I get a strike, you can definitely see that strike, and that definitely sets you up for a hookup. Let's see, medium fast loose rod, 6 SLX 50-pound braid. Have another one rigged with 30-pound fluorocarbon. Nice. I use braid, but I mainly use braid when I'm gonna also do double duty and use the water wolf camera that I like using to get some underwater shots. I'll just kind of cast it out there. Other than that, I kind of go with straight mono. I did try fluorocarbon. It does work well. But when I was fly fishing one year, I kept breaking. It kept cracking on me or whatever, just snipping off for whatever reason. So I went back to mono after that. Okay. I recently put together an ugly stick dock runner with tiny 500 series. And then Damien Dregg's volume. Am I being too loud, or you need more sound? Let's see if I can bump up the volume. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, 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 hello. How's that sound? Maybe starting to distort. Let me bring it down some. Let me get closer to the mic. Maybe that might help. All right. Okay, volume's good. Excellent. All right. What else we got? Let's see. Recently put together an ugly stick dock runner with tiny 500 series spinning reel. It's so useful for getting into that tighter. It's nice. Okay, volume was good. All right, let me bump it down then. Okay, other things that you want to talk about. Let's see. There was some saltwater fishing that we did last week. Some upcoming things. I'm probably going to do some more ultralight bait casting. Uh, just possibly this weekend. There's a chance of rain in the area, so I may be hitting up a pond that's in the Fort Worth area, so the town next to us or city next to us, and it's a city pond that I've caught several bass there before, and I just got the hankering to see what else is lurking there. Now that I've got that Corrado, all right. I do have some other ones. Let me go ahead and grab that one real quick. And it looks like the okay. Let's see. There's some other stuff. What was your favorite way to rig a Senko? Okay. I like rigging Senkos two ways. Your weedless Texas rig with no weight. I just go ahead and just use a Texas rig, but no weight, no worm sink or nothing. The Senko, even just using my normal bait caster, is heavy enough that I can cast it. If I go down to, let's say, a 4-inch Senko, I can still cast it with the bait, my normal bait caster. If I go to a 3, then I'll shift over to some ultralight bait casters and use it. I also do the wacky rig that does some good work there. Just there's a tendency that they'll break off more, and you can't reuse them like I do when I Texas rig them. So what I'll do is I'll bring some super glue with me, and I'll take the Texas rig Senko, and as it gets worn out or beat up, I'll either try using some super glue to tighten up that rip on the tip of the Senko. If it's just too much, I'll actually just pinch it and go ahead and fish it some more. And then if it's really getting beaten up, but it's still getting a bite, I'll just flip it over and I'll just reverse the hook, the Senko, and run the hook on from the smaller, the narrow section of the Senko and keep fishing. At times, sometimes I only need like 1 or 2 Senkos to fish a whole session at the local ponds because I'm flip flopping them, using some super glue and whatnot, and doing well there. Okay, let's see. Love the live. What time do you start it and when? Oh, the live streams. Uh, those I do on the fly. What I do is I'll take a harness that goes around my neck. I'll attach my phone to that harness, and then I have a microphone that kind of sits on the harness itself. I'll do a sound check before I start, and then I just start fishing. And usually the max I can get out of a live stream using the phone is about 2 hours, and it's because the phone dies on me because of the battery. Or if it's really hot, like the 100-degree temps that we had the other day, yeah, it only lasted 30 minutes and it just shut down on me. And that last one when it shut down on me would have been a good session because I kept fishing, and there was a couple of nice sized bass I caught that round. But I tend to do it. I do have a day job, so I tend to do this later in the day, later in the evening when I'm done with my day job. As well as on the weekends, it's just hit or miss because I go by that fishing, at least my fishing rule of thumb. It was the best time to go fishing whenever you can. Okay, Texas rig all the way. Nice. Okay. What is your? Let's see. That's extremely smart. Oh yeah, thanks on the super glue. I learned it just on the fly. I was like, hey, wait a minute. I was using super glue to tighten up some knots I had, and I was like, hey, I can use it also for these Senkos. All right. Let's see. Donnie just caught a huge peacock, South Florida. Nice. Yeah, I bet that's a nice one. Wouldn't mind trying it on the one of these bait finesse reels here. So speaking of the bait finesse, here's that other casking that I have. Okay, Okay, this was one of the first ones I had. This is the one with the reel clicker. There's another one I have that doesn't have a reel clicker, so it doesn't have that clicky sound when you're catching them. But this is what got me started. And it was actually one of y'all subscribers had bumped me up one year and just said, "Hey, you ever heard of BFS fishing?" And I said, "No." And I Googled it and thought, "Hey, this would be awesome. It looks fun." And then I saw the price tag on them, and back then they were going. These reels were going 500, 600, $700 to get started. So a little bit too steep for yours truly. And then I found out about the Casking Zephyr, and I got hooked on that one and got a good start on the bait finesse piece. And then from there I shifted over and got that Scorpion BFS XG. And then on a whim I got this guy, the Flight Feather Flight. Yeah, this one cast the 1 gram trout magnet out the box, no tweaking, 2-pound test line. This is the one that I mainly use when I go for some trout, some stock trout in the area. It's a very fun rod and reel combo. The rod I got from Amazon, the Handing L, Magic L. Right, it's the 4.5 as well as the 6-foot version I have up on the wall right now. I don't use the 6-foot version that often, as I tend to side cast more than overhead cast when I'm bait finesse style fishing. And I tend to get a better cast with a side cast for whatever reason. Okay, what else we got? Let's see. Donnie calls out 8.9 pounds. Nice. That's a bruiser. What's your favorite knot for mono and braid? I pretty much use for mono. There's really 3 knots that I use: the improved clinch knot, the trilene knot, and then I use a perfection loop. And that's mainly because I tie my own fly leaders, as well as I use that same perfection loop when I'm setting up a slab and jig rig for kayak fishing. I find when I make a slab and jig rig, I'll go with a 30-pound main line, and then I'll have some sabiki tied crappie jigs and the slab set on the bottom, or the trailing lure. And what I do is those will be attached with 15-pound test. And so if I ever snag bottom and I have to break off, typically I'll salvage everything except for the lure that was hung up. So if it was a crappie jig and it breaks off, I just got to replace the crappie jig. In the case of the slab, if it breaks off, because I went with a loop-to-loop connection, I can just do another, tie on another one with a loop line, and then slide that onto the slab and jig rig, and I'm back in business. For braid, I think I've been using the uni knot. Yeah, and then I did use that one that you use. I even forgot what it's called now. Bimini twist? No, not the Bimini. It's one where you take one line and then you end up wrapping it like almost like 20, 30 times, and it gets a really nice tight connection, but that just tends to take a while. So I go with some of the simpler ties. All right, so good engagement here. Appreciate y'all calling out some of these things. It's been pretty fun so far. Just again, this is the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing podcast series. I put it on our Real Cast Fishing podcast and just post it there. So there's an audio version. This is the video version, unedited. I just let it go right onto YouTube as is. So sometimes there's not much going on. Other times we got some good engagement with the folks on the call or on the stream. And then for this format, I go through the 5 tips, and then we just go to an open forum here. All right. And right now, although I have a lot of fly fishing gear, there's a bunch of stuff there that's all fly rods, fly reels in this one case, and there's some more up there. I retired, 4 fiberglass fly rods. These are ones that I used when I was a kid growing up South Texas, and then over the years just kind of went ahead and retired them because, hey, there's a lot of other gear that I have that would be good to go fishing with. Do you ever do for big fish? Let's see. I guess let's see, big fish. I've caught some. The biggest one was a stingray. Or do you ever go for big fish? Uh, yes. So depending on where I'm fishing, the intent is to fish for a particular fish. I'm one of these ones. I'm still in the quantity phase versus quality. But yeah, when I do target bigger fish, I'll try different things, and it's typically like when we go to Galveston and or Port Aransas or down south and fish the beach. We're fishing for sharks and other things. Like the biggest one so far we've actually landed was a 5 foot black tip. We've lost some bigger ones, and then personal best 8 pound bass, various 5 6 pounders, striped bass. I go by length with striped bass just because I don't have a scale, and I do eat the striped bass. Let me think. Biggest 30 something inch, and then for black drum, redfish, we were catching the 40 inchers. But it's really uh, based on where I'm fishing. All right. So yeah, I do go for some big fish, but I do realize that a lot of times I'm an opportune fisherman. So if I have the time to fish a location or a particular place on the commute, sometimes I'll just stop and fish and just see what happens. Redfish are a lot of fun. Oh yeah, very fun, and they are very tasty. Alrighty, all right, okay. Let's see. I think this probably round out the call. Appreciate y'all joining today. I love the engagement, and I hope to be doing more of these live streams. I got various ones, formats. The fishing ramblings, where we're just talking fishing in general. The Little Red Book of Fly Fishing series, and then I started the mobile fishing live streams, and all that is just yours truly put on the camera and just start casting, good or bad. Sometimes I catch stuff, sometimes I don't. And I try keeping the conversation going, or at least commenting, because that same live stream is the same one that I'm going to do an audio version that folks can listen to, let's say on a commute to and from work and whatnot. They can just turn it on and just kind of listen to what I'm describing. All right. And then while I'm streaming, on an occasion I'll look down and I'll see some folks calling out a few things, and I'll try to get those called out in the stream as well, because hey, it's a two-way street here. I've had cases before where someone has suggested something on the call, gave it a try, and sure enough it works. So hey, interactive TV basically. Alrighty. All right then. Again, appreciate y'all joining. I'll plan to do some more of these, and we'll do another hopefully another session with more engagement. All right. Next time, catch y'all later, and good luck.